The true legend Crazy Ayten. 23 years ago, in Bursa, there lived Crazy Ayten, who roamed from one bazaar to another from morning until night with a drum on her shoulder, a compass, a traditional Turkish string instrument, in her hand, and colorful bags hanging from her arm. When summer came, the people of Bursa would leave for holiday resorts and summer houses, leaving the markets and bazaars quiet. The hustle and bustle of the streets, the rush, and the loud crowds would be replaced by a profound silence. In these quiet times, the sound of a drum echoing at the entrance of the bazaar heralded the arrival of Crazy Ayten. Bored shopkeepers, tired of idleness, would cheerfully welcome her. Ayten would walk through the bazaar, drumming as she went, and on her way back, she would strum her compass. According to the shopkeepers' beliefs and observations, whichever shop Ayten stopped to rest in front of would be showered with blessings. The shopkeepers would rush to their doors, competing with each other, much like the fishmongers in Aksaray trying to lure customers, saying, "Madam Ayten, would you like to come in?" They vied to host her in hopes of her bringing good fortune to their stores. Some would go so far as to perform curtsies or even handstands to catch her attention and convince her to stop by their shop. Crazy Ayten would look down on these antics with a hint of arrogance. Sometimes, she would scold the shopkeepers, saying, "What's with all the fidgeting, like you're trying to do belly dances? Stop acting foolish." Then, she would decide where to rest based solely on her mood. Wherever Ayten stopped, prosperity would soon follow. While sipping her tea or coffee, she would lightly tap her drum and play her compass, then move on to spread luck and blessings to another shop. For the people of Bursa, Crazy Ayten was nothing short of a legend. When she walked the streets, people would leave their homes to greet her, and when she left their neighborhood, they would send her off with applause. She always wandered with a long trail of children following behind her. Undoubtedly, every neighborhood had its local, crazy character. These people treated the neighborhood as their personal kingdom and had no tolerance for rival, crazies, encroaching on their territory. But Ayten transcended all these boundaries. She was the undisputed queen of all the crazies. Every year, during Hydrellah's week, the crazies of Bursa would organize a kind of consecration ceremony in honor of Crazy Ayten. Before dawn broke, Crazy Ayten would leave her shabby house in Kizyakoup neighborhood. On this day, she would wear her best dress, carry her most elegant bags, and paint her lips with her reddest lipstick. Naturally, her clean drum and polished compass would also accompany her. She would start her festival in her own neighborhood. Arriving at the main square, she would strike her drum 3 times. The 2 local crazies of the neighborhood would join her, falling in line behind her. Then, they would walk to the second neighborhood. Again, she would strike the drum 3 times, and the local crazy of that area would also join the convoy. This ritual continued until all 15 neighborhoods had been visited. While the sane citizens of Bursa were still in deep slumber, the crazies of Bursa, led by Ayten, would perform their unique procession. By the time Ayten had gathered a battalion of 15 to 20 crazies and paraded through the streets, the people of Bursa would awaken and gather at their windows, clapping in rhythm with the procession. By the afternoon, Crazy Ayten and her followers would return to the Mujichinler coffee house in Kizyakoup neighborhood, where the Queen's Tin Castle stood. Here, musicians would greet the group with darbukas, drums, violins, and qanuns. Instruments would play, girls would dance, and by evening, everyone would return to their homes. Various rumors circulated about Crazy Ayten. Some claimed she was the daughter of a wealthy Istanbul family who lost her mind at a young age and came to Bursa. Others said she was the child of a family that had migrated from Thessaloniki, left all alone after losing her parents in a fire. However, the story that most people familiar with Ayten agreed upon began in the Kizyakoup neighborhood. Full name Ayten Senasik. As a child, she had suffered from severe illnesses. At the age of 16 or 17, she fell in love with a young man. Her love, Kumbas Hasan Bayandiroglu, who was 5 or 6 years older than her, also loved her. However, her family disapproved of the match because of Hasan's drinking habits and wild nightlife. Desperate and heartbroken, Ayten stopped eating, drinking, and sleeping. It was during this period that the gap between her and reality began to widen. Like in all such stories, the family sought help from doctors. Eventually, one doctor suggested that reuniting her with her beloved might help her recover. After 6 years, the family relented and allowed the marriage. But by then, it was too late. The gap between Ayten and the real world could no longer be bridged. Hassan, lost in the depths of alcoholism, eventually abandoned her and disappeared. Ayten, taking the compass her husband left behind and the drum she tied around her neck, began wandering the streets, searching for Hassan. A few years later, Hassan fell ill and passed away, closing the chapter for good. Ayten spent the rest of her life in the streets. On March 12, 1992, Ayten was found dead in her shack in Kizyakoup. The next day, after a funeral prayer at Ahmet Dai Mosque, she was buried in Pınarbaşı Cemetery.